Okay, I hope everybody enjoyed that break, and we're glad to be back and move on to item number 6 on our agenda, and that's presentations from our fire district. And we're happy to have Bobby Smith here to introduce the groups coming before us.
All right, thank you, sir. As you're aware, the county contracts for fire services for our tax districts, and we either contract with nonprofit departments or what most people know as volunteer departments, and we contract with municipal departments to provide those services. And the Board of Commissioners set those tax rates each year for each one of those individual districts. So this year we have 3 departments coming to request tax increases for the districts that they cover. Our first department is the City of Concord, and I'm glad to have City Manager Brian Hyatt and Fire Chief Ray Allen with us tonight. And I'll turn it over to these gentlemen.
Thank you, Bobby. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, and Mr. Downs and staff, we really appreciate you letting us come in front of you and talk with you about this. We do provide services to 2 fire districts in the City of Concord, and our request is pretty simple. Right now, we're providing services to those folks outside the city limits, and what the folks are paying inside the city limits is higher. So what we would like to do is, in a phased approach, try to increase the amounts that the residents outside our city limits are paying for the fire services to the same level that our city residents are paying. And I'm going to ask Chief Allen if he'll go over the slides, since he's the one that knows what he's doing. And we can certainly be willing to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt. And thank you for taking time to hear us this evening. So the first slide I've got is basically a history of where Concord Fire Department has been with our rural fire districts. Up until about 2010, we contracted at a monthly rate for those districts. Beginning in 2010, with what is the Concord Rural District, we began receiving the 4 cents, as you can see there, in 2010. And then in 2011, Concord was approached to start contracting for the formerly Jackson Park Volunteer Fire District. And of course, the fire tax rate there was 5.8 cents. So that's just a history of where we're at. And that's the current tax rates in those areas. Here is a brief overview of our fire department. We are ISO 2 rated fire department. We have called the Department of Insurance to come and do another review for us. They're going to be here in March. It's our goal. We suspect that we're going to be able to reduce that to a Class 1 fire department in March. That's the reason we've called them in. But we currently have 11 stations, one of those being at Concord Regional Airport. Daily we staff 9 engines, 3 ladder companies, a heavy rescue, 2 battalion chiefs, a safety officer. We have a maximum of 61 daily staffing and a minimum of 49. It, of course, works a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year schedule.
Not to interrupt
Sure.
your flow, but just
Sure.
for just really brief, explain the difference between the Class 1 and the Class 2 and what the impact of that is, because I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so the difference will be when you start getting your insurance rating that low. The impact is only for your commercial and industrial residents, so it won't have any impact on homeowners insurance, but it will, depending upon the insurance company, have a 5 to 8% insurance reduction for commercial and industrial customers. Okay, you're welcome. Here's an overview of our current operational budget. We were allocated $19.3 million, including our capital. Without the capital, it's $17.6 million. That is equivalent to 14 cents of the ad valorem tax rate for the City of Concord. So as Mr. Hyatt has already mentioned, that's where that disparity exists, where the city residents are paying 14 cents for fire protection, and our rural districts are paying, depending upon which one they're in, either the 4 cent or the almost 6 cent. We do provide the exact same service in those areas as we do in the residents of the city. Just a brief overview of where those areas exist. The Concord Rural District is basically Sandusky Boulevard area out around the Speedway. That's primarily, or a large portion of that, is the Littles Mobile Home Park, which I'm sure y'all are familiar with, right across from the Speedway. There's a small piece of undeveloped property on Copperfield Boulevard, and then probably the largest in terms of square mileage is the old Jackson Park District, which I mentioned earlier, which exists there around Stowell Road, Rocky River Road, some of Zion Church Road in that area. Here's an overview which sort of talks about those insurance rates that I already discussed, but it kind of shows based on, we got in contact with some local insurance agents and asked them to show us the impact of reducing our ISO rating from a 2 to a 1, and you can see there that it does vary from agent to agent. And of course, we also showed what it would be if it was a 6, which was what the Jackson Park District was formerly before we started contracting with them. So, you know, the 1 to 2 is not going to be, of course, as big an impact as it was as the 6 was. Okay. Here's a map that shows the areas that I discussed earlier. That shows all the areas, the Concord rule way out to the left of your screen, and then most of that is the Jackson Park area. The only thing that's not showed there, as I mentioned earlier, there's a small undeveloped piece of property off of Copperfield Boulevard. Here is an analysis of the emergency responses that we're providing in those areas. You can see it's a 5-year breakdown. So over the course of the last 5 years in that Jackson Park area, that's been 742 emergency responses. And in the Concord Rural, that's 230 emergency responses. Okay, Meg. Okay. The proposal that we have before you for your consideration is, as Mr. Hyde already mentioned, it's a phased-in process. We propose that in the upcoming fiscal year 17-18 to increase both districts from their current rate to a 10-cent assessment, and then next fiscal year add 4 cents onto that, bringing it up to 14, which is what the current rate is if you live in the city of Concord. And this will provide the equal contributions for the rural districts and the city residents as well. And this is the final slide. I have a few final comments. This is the final slide, which just shows what the current revenues are, what some of the estimated revenues would be, and it's basically amounts to 1% either way of our current operating budget at the fire department. I mentioned the emergency calls that we respond to in the area, but there's also a little more to it than that. We started providing hydrant maintenance in those areas, which also assists with that ISO rating. Particularly in the Jackson Park District, that area was in need of some hydrant maintenance. We had some difficulties actually in that area when we first took it over with some hydrants that were had been poorly to non-maintained. So we've fixed all those problems and got that up to snuff. The primary area that responds to the Jackson Park area is Fire Station 8, which is down on Old Charlotte Road, and we of course have a pumper down there, and we've relocated a brush truck in that area because that is a little bit more of a rural area. So there's a need for a brush truck in that rural Jackson Park area, so we maintain a brush truck down there. And then we've also proposed in our budget, and we hope for it to be approved, some additional staffing to put more people in some particularly vulnerable areas of the city. And one of those areas that we've identified is Station 8, and part of that it was because of that Jackson Park District. So if approved, we're going to staff with more people at that station because of that area. It's not totally because of the Jackson Park Fire District, but that is one consideration that we had to consider. We've also got some items that will be coming in the future that we're going to present in our budget, particularly a tanker for that area. That's really the only fire district we have that we're somewhat vulnerable with water. And when we took that fire district over in Jackson Park, the Jackson Park Board at the time made the determination that they were not going to share any of the resources that fire district had purchased with the city of Concord. So all those resources that the people in that district had purchased have now gone to other fire departments. So the city of Concord was responsible for providing that. There was some resources that they had that we could have used in lieu of some of the things that we're going to have to propose in the future. And with that, I believe that's all I have. I'll be take any questions you may have.
And I will say that generally in our general fund budget, public safety makes up about 55% of that. That would be police and fire and communications. So that's always obviously one of our biggest expenditures every year in the general fund.
There's not a map. Bobby, you have a map of this district. Is this rural area, is that sort of a donut hole now? You're going all the way around it with your city limits, or?
There is a map. That's all of the rural district except for the piece on Copperfield, which that probably is, I can't say for sure that's donated, but it's probably close. It's all that purple area. I'm sorry, the purple area is the Jackson Park, and then out to the left is right there. That's the Concord Rural. That's most of the Concord Rural. There's a little piece of it that's off the map. But as you can see, most of it is this center piece that is the Jackson Park.
And the Jackson Park area is gradually becoming a donut.
Right.
If it's not already in some of the portions of it.
So I've got two questions. On page 47, the number, class 6, on the third column is 1182. Am I missing something there?
Oh, I'm sorry. What's that?
It's not a big deal. I was just curious because,
Oh, yeah. I think that's right. It's supposed to, I've got the 1 and the 8 in the wrong place.
okay, good, all right. So then I
Yes.
thought I understood, but then I
Yeah,
saw that
that's
and I
my
wasn't
mistake.
sure.
I apologize.
Okay, and the only other question I have, and I think it's probably fairly obvious with growth and everything, and then you mentioned the tanker and some of the different things.
Mm-hmm.
With this increase in tax, where do you guys see that? What do you see it paying for? Where do you see that it will be spent?
Well, I'm not sure if I should answer that or Mr.
Well-
White, but I'll go ahead.
Well, and you
I'll
don't
start
have to,
off.
I think it's, most of these things are kind of obvious, it's just where they end up going because there's never enough.
Yeah,
You know, I
and
get
that's-
that.
We have, in these particular areas, obviously, the chief's already mentioned some of the things we need. Fire protection is certainly growing as a challenge. Right now, we've got in one of our areas, we've got a new station that we need to build to replace a temporary station. In this year's budget, we've got monies to acquire land for another station, and then we've got a couple others too. But the equipment is probably the main thing to serve these areas, and as we all know, that equipment is getting much more expensive than it was many years ago, like everything else. But that's probably the equipment. And also, the chief mentioned the personnel that he has in his budget this year, and he also has some that I think in future years that he would like
Correct.
to add too, for that too. So that's,
So to that area specifically, though, there's a brush truck, which we've already moved in that area because of it. We do need a tanker in that area, in that Rocky River Road area. And as I said, that staffing, which Mr. Hyatt mentioned, there's going to be some coming in the future, but we identified 2 areas that were particularly vulnerable. This was one of them. So we're going to add some additional staffing in that area because we do try to meet some national standards with response. So if there's a fire in that area, it's our goal to get 25 people on scene within 8 minutes or less.
Okay, other questions? Commissioners?
I was just thinking about, we talked the other night about the team of 4 guys. We added 5. Now, those are for county, but since these are not city limit areas that we're talking about, if I'm right, does that team assist these guys as well?
Do you have them on any of your? We made them available, and I think some of them are looking at what areas to put them on. I don't want to speak for the chief, but
I'll speak
No,
about that.
I'm just curious because, there's only 5 guys there, but still yet, we don't have fires everywhere at the same time, hopefully.
Sure. So we currently don't have them worked into our response plan, and I've been working with Steve on that. There's sort of a specific reason for that. Our dispatch or our response is based on an automatic vehicle location. So it's based on where the vehicles are at. So even though there's a station in the area, sometimes there might be another truck closer or perhaps several trucks. So right now, I think we're talking about Squad 410 or the county staff truck. doesn't have the ability for us to know their location. So we're willing to do it, and we're trying to work through those things so that we can use those folks, because we're more than happy to use some additional help. But we need to get them where they can merge in with our response plan, so we'll actually, in other words, we don't want to eliminate some of our folks assuming that they're in a certain spot, but they may not be in that spot. But if with the automatic vehicle location system, the CAD or the communication system will know where they're at. So we're trying to get there, I guess is what I'm saying. We're not there right now.
Well, and our team was to get the minimum 4 people on site, right?
That was to assist, yeah.
Yeah. And you're saying you have 25 on site?
That's what our response, so if there's a fire in that area, we would send resources that would allocate 25 people to the fire.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So, pretty big difference.
Well, with that being said, they wouldn't need our 5 guys. Yeah, you got 5 times that many.
Well, we'll take them.
Okay, any other questions? Well, we thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the presentation.
All right, our next department requesting a tax increase is the Flow Store Fire Department, and we're honored tonight to have Board President Ken Nichols and Chief Joey Houston to present tonight.
Hi, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about the tax rate increase that we're requesting. Just a little bit of background, and I'll let Joey speak. He knows more about the intricate details than I do. Flow Store is asking for an increase of .01. We're currently at .05, and we're looking to go to .06. That represents a $40,650 increase, tax rate increase to the department. Currently, Flow Store is the lowest. We have the lowest tax rate of any of the volunteer fire departments in Cabarrus County. We've always been very, very conservative, and we only ask for a tax rate increase when we absolutely feel that we have to have it. The average rate in the county is .0784, and so with us being at .05 currently, that puts us about 36% lower than the average rate within the county. So you can see we're a pretty conservative department. So again, we're asking for an increase from .05 to .06, and with that, I'll turn it over to Joy to explain why we need the money.
The money would be used for additional staffing. We currently staff our station 14 hours a day, 7 days a week with one person there, basically to get the truck there, and then the rest of our crew is supplemented by volunteers who come from home, work, or wherever they're at the time. We're fortunate that we do have a good volunteer response. We average 26 to 7 people per call. Obviously fires we average more people, medical calls a little less, but overall numbers is 6 to 7 people, which is, for volunteer department's pretty good. Like I said, we've worked up to 14 hours a day within the past couple of years. The increase would allow us to staff the additional 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, I'm sorry, so that we can staff overnight and help improve our response time at night. Our response time during the day, when we have someone there on shift, is 6 minutes and 53 seconds when we have someone there. So at nighttime, when we don't have anyone there, our response time is just under 10 minutes. So it makes a difference of about 3 minutes when we have someone there and when we don't have anyone there. Obviously, our volunteers come from home, but the ones that are close to the scene can go direct to the scene if we have somewhere with the truck that can meet them there. It'll be very, very beneficial for us, and obviously we want to continue to improve our service. We averaged just under 600 calls last year. We were down a little bit from previous years. We were doing a lot of automatic aid with Harrisburg, and with them adding another station, that kind of helped them out, so we didn't have to help them as much as we were before. So our numbers have dropped just a little bit, but we're still just under 600 calls a year. So, As far as numbers at nighttime, I don't have, the difference between the numbers at night, numbers during the day. The way I look at it is, somebody's emergency during the night is no less important than someone's emergency during the day. So the money will go towards staffing during those additional hours. In that as well is money to upfit the station to meet code so that we can have someone there during overnight hours. We currently have a bedroom, but working with the fire marshal, he identified some issues that were not up to code as far as housing someone there at nighttime. So about 20,000 of that initially will go towards upfitting the station to bring us up to code so that obviously we want our people to be safe if they're staying there, and also bring us up to the proper code for having people there at nighttime. With that, if you have any more questions or any questions for us, throw them at us.
I would add one question. It sounds like you're going to get a lot done with $40,000. So I'm sure you're having to supplement that to increase the staffing and also make the improvements. Is that you've already provided for that in your budget?
Yeah, we've already got, like I said, we allocated 20,000 of the new monies. Obviously, starting July 1st, we won't be able to staff immediately because we had to upfit the station. So the difference between, probably more like 60 days, I would hope 30 days that we could get everything done, but how construction things go, they tend to last a little longer than you want them to. But that money that we would save during that 30 to 60 day period would help offset, the other costs with that. And then the following year, that's additional money that we could roll into, additional staffing if we identify other areas, where we may need to add a second person, during certain hours a day. It would give us that flexibility. So.
Okay, thank you. Questions, commissioners?
Just one. What is your current ISO rating? Did you say that, or is it in any of this?
No,
I didn't see it nowhere.
We're currently a 5.9. So basically, any areas that have hydrants are a 5. Any areas that do not have a hydrant is a 9. We're working. We about to take the purchase or delivery of a new tanker, which will help us. We want to work towards getting our water hall certification, which is if we do that with the state when they do come in, it will allow us to lower, get a single grade as opposed to a split grade, showing that we can haul in a certain amount of water to certain areas. Basically, kind of offsets not having hydrants there. And we're state, they try to do the lower than 9 inspections every 7 years from what I was told. We're 12 years out, so we're due. We're not on the docket for this year, but I expect probably next year or the year after that. So obviously we want to work to try to get everybody down, as low as we can go. We're mostly residential, so like Chief Allen was talking about with Concord, once you get into the lower rates, for the lower insurance rates, it's better for commercial. Most of ours is residential. So anything 6 of ISO class 6 or below is basically the same, pretty much the same rate for residential. So if we could get everyone to a 6 or below, we would be pretty happy with that. So.
Well, one good thing about that, if you could manage to do that, obviously it would bring their homeowners insurance down, which would probably more than offset the penny increase that you're asking for.
For the ones that do not have hydrants, it probably would.
Yeah, and the vast majority of our territory do not have fire hydrants, so we haul water a lot.
I think we're about a little over 70% of our area does not have hydrants. So.
I think Joy was telling me coming up here too that our territory is, you said, about the size of what city?
The city of Myrtle Beach. A little nugget of knowledge there. Obviously, we're not as populated as Myrtle Beach, but yeah. So we do have a good size area, but it is manageable for what we have, and we have a good group of volunteers, and a good board that's responsible for money, and we do have very nice equipment, and we do a pretty good job. So.
And if I could add, we have no doubt with the new tanker and the certification, we're pretty confident they'll lower that rate from everything we've seen and working with these guys.
Okay, any other questions? We thank you very much. If you have something else.
Oh, yeah, one other thing, if you don't mind, with the purchase of our new tanker, we got some assistance from Union Power. They applied for a USDA grant on our behalf, which allowed them, Union Power, to loan us the money for our new truck interest-free, which saves us a lot of money. And they wanted to have a little event to kind of, take a picture and meet everyone. They'll be at our station on June 29th at 3 o'clock. I'd like to invite all of y'all if y'all want to come. Kind of thank them for what they've done for us and in our community. It's a good program. Once we pay them back the money on the loan, they can basically, in turn, loan that money to some other agency or fire department, interest-free, and do the same thing for them. So,
Yeah,
The date and time again?
June 29th at 3 o'clock.
and I think Union Power is planning to invite the media there and take a lot of pictures and try to get some publicity out of it. It's a wonderful thing they're doing for us, and in fact, we're the first fire department. It had never crossed their mind, and actually Joy was reading about another department somewhere else, or another utility that had done something similar to this, so he contacted Union Power and suggested it to them, and they said, I don't know, let's look into it. So they did. We've been working with them for probably a year now, and it's hard to beat a 0% interest loan. It's going to save us a ton of money.
Think they would loan some money to build some schools? We'd love to sign up for that deal.
Yeah. Once we pay them back the money, on a yearly basis, they can then loan that again to someone else, so you can ask them.
Great. Well, we appreciate you being with us tonight.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
time. Thank you.
And finally, we have Kannapolis Fire Department coming to talk about their requested increase for the rural fire district. We're pleased to have City Manager Mike Legg and Fire Chief Ernie Hires with us.
Good to be with you. So we'll probably catch you up on your time here, because we don't have as many details, maybe because we knew Concord would go first, and there's a lot of the same similarities here with our situation and our ask that Concord had. I will answer maybe one question up front. The question's been asked from both departments that have gone before us about, what the money's for, what would you use additional funds for, and really, I guess there's two answers to that. One, about 5 years ago, we constructed Fire Station 5, which serves a good part of this area. So we've already invested to serve this area. And right now, we are in a major growth mode. We're hiring 4 new fire personnel this year. We're hiring, replacing 2 fire stations, Station 3, Station 2, which also serves this area, with a new station. We're also replacing Station 3. Both of the stations have aged out. Also replacing a ladder truck and replacing an engine. So this year we've got all told, about $9 million in our budget for fire service improvements. So
We appreciate that.
yeah, so we're investing, and we just think this is really about being equitable, and that those that receive the service chip in and pay their fair share of that service. That's pretty much what the basis of the request is.
Okay, I know this is the presentation you guys waited for because it's the last one. When you looked at your agenda, you said, man, can't wait till we get to this one. So you made it. So anyways, my first slide is just a map of the Kannapolis Rural District, which is the part in orange. The horizontal part is the old Enochville area, which you're probably familiar with. The part that goes vertical is the area that's adjacent to our Station 5 out on Bar Road. It's exactly where the dividing line is Bar Road. So across the street from our station is in the county. Just a brief history on our rural district. Really started in '99 with some area from the Weinkauf annexation that was still in the county. The tax rate at that point was 3.5 cents. In 2011 is when the Enochville area and the Station 5 area was added. And again, the tax rate stayed at 3.5. Just to look at what the tax rates are in the counties, and you can kind of look at it. Harrisburg's at 13, Northeast that's 12. Go to the right-hand column all the way down at the bottom. Kannapolis is the lowest at 3.5, and our friends Concord are just above us. The Kannapolis Fire Department budget's a little bit over $7 million. Our residents pay 13 cents per 100, as opposed to 3.5 in the rural area. Our calls for service, in the rural area, we run a little bit over 200 calls per year for service. 2015, I don't know what happened that year, but we ran 245. But it's been running right around 200 the last 5 years. And we're proposing a three-year plan. This year going to 8 cent, next year going to 10 cent, and 1920 going to 13 cent. And if you have any questions, myself or Mr. Legg will be happy to answer them.
Questions for our Kannapolis representatives? I think you explained it very well, and it is a very similar situation, as you mentioned. We don't want them to think we're trying to rush them away too quickly because they're the last ones. Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, that does take us to the end of our presentations, and we do have time allotted for general board discussion, which fortunately we've had an opportunity to do some of that during the meeting, but first check to see if staff has things that they think we need to know.
Well, this completes what we passed it up. Had planned to present. Again, as Chairman Morris said, we were able to give you some updates of what we've already made at your last meeting, those updates as far as what's there. My notes here are to get additional information concerning the nurse at the Mary Frances Wall School, and I don't have anything else that's that we need to give you any updated information on. Is there anything else that you've heard tonight that you would like to have some additional information on? I think that was it. So we'll get that, and we'll get that, shoot that out as an email tomorrow to you as soon as we get that information. And that is it. Also, once, now, RCCC, they didn't really, they're going to give us detail. So we'll pursue that detail as well tomorrow. Hopefully, I think they probably have what they are intending to spend it on, but they didn't come out and say it tonight. So we'll pursue that as well. And that's it, unless you have, again, there may be some others. As you start digging through this, you will have a work session in June that we will have some time there if you have some additional questions. But between now and that work session, feel free to shoot any of us an email, and we'll run down that information for you. So that, or if you're inclined and you would like some more information, like to do it in person, feel free to give us a call, and those that need to be in that meeting will sit down with you and go over whatever it is that you're needing an update on. So
Have we adopted the budget at the June business meeting?
the
Or is there a
the
separate
June
special-
regular meeting.
I mean, regular meeting.
Yeah, the regular
yes.
meeting.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If there are none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. And we stand adjourned. Thank you.